the Brazilian personality, the brightness, the passion, the laughter, the dancing, the joy. Well, you do that already with your wines. You've got the most fantastic muscatel sparklers, easily world class. You've got this beautiful version of muscat, or white muscat, which you seem to have and no one else seems to have, with higher acidity, lovely perfumed fruit. Now, you make really good use of that. I would go on making use of that. Keep it as fresh as possible, make it as bright as possible. Don't put the sugar too high, doesn't need it. And I'd like you to have a dryish version as well as your normal version, but either way, it's a wonderful drink. Don't think of it as a wine. Don't say, what food does it go with? Is it a dessert wine? If it wants to be. What it is, though, is a drink. It's like a caipirinha. It's like a really good gin and tonic. It's a drink. That's what your sparkling muscat is, and that's how it should be sold. Your Charmat sparkling wines, the dry ones, made from Chardonnay and Pinot Noir, are fantastic. The quality that comes through in those at a low price is absolutely superb. Right round the world you find Charmat wines. They're almost always rubbish. Yours are really good. And then you've got champagne method, traditional method wines on top of that, which are even better. So the whole of your sparkling wine world seems to be in good nick, and by the look of it, going around the wineries, you're actually expanding sparkling wine production, intending to do more of it. I would say that's absolutely fantastic news. I don't think that Brazil has found necessarily its best vineyard areas yet. The Brazilian wine culture is a young one. Hey, there's nothing wrong with that. It's a great idea being young. Being an old one really gets in the way quite often. New Zealand, that's a really young wine culture. Chile, that's a really young wine culture. It's not old, it's young. Argentina, it's really young. Australia's only 30 or 40 years old. South Africa, the real South African wine culture, the one that makes lovely wine, 5 or 10 years old. So youth is actually great. And the thing about youth is you should be able to do whatever you want. Try out everything. So I'm slightly concerned about the way things like your DOs here are starting to close things down, saying, oh, you can only plant these grapes, like the Valle de Viñedos has to be 60% Merlot to be in the DO there. Why? I mean, you say, oh, because Merlot's well adapted here. Fine. If it's well adapted, the market will find it out and say, we like your Merlots. You don't need a law to actually say you must have Merlots, when the next guy might say, I want to do Cabernet Franc, which is a very good grape, by the way. I wish I could see more of that. But some other guy might say, I've got this new grape from anywhere, from Portugal, from Spain, from somewhere else in France, from Austria, from Russia, from China. I don't know. But why can't he plant it here if he's got a nice vineyard here? I don't see there's any reason that you should say you can't plant it. That's not what we do. That's a mistake that happened in Europe. That's why France got into such trouble. That's why Spain and Italy lost their market share to places like Australia and California and New Zealand, where they don't talk like that. They just say, are you any good? Plant what you want. And if you're any good, we'll buy it. That's a much better way to look at life. And I think that that is beginning to happen down in the south. I've got high hopes of Serra del Sureste. That seems to me an area which might be a new world for Brazil. I've got high hopes of Santa Catarina up in just north of the state. I think that I've got high hopes there that high altitude but decent sunshine, cold nights, warm days might really produce some tremendous stuff. They're both new areas. They've both got just a few hundred hectares of plantations so far. But I would put some money on those being new world areas. Serra Gaúcha, well, if it's going to just stick with the grapes it's got, it's going to be an old world area. Nothing wrong with that. You know, there's a very strong old world feel about Bento Gonçalves. There's a very strong old world feel about these beautiful hills and dales and valleys and forests, and just everything about this here feels old world, and beautifully so. It's the old world of Piedmont, it's the old world of Trento, it's the old world of the northern Veneto. So that's absolutely fantastic. But if your wines are correct, technically good, but slightly old world as well, that's a decision you have to make. If you want to stick with your Merlots and Chardonnays and stuff, that's fine. Just make them as well as you can. But one thing I would say that that sort of may make you change your mind is you seem to be able to make wines really well around the Saragossa area with low alcohol, and that's a special ability. You can get flavour and texture and balance in red wines at 12, 12.2, 12.5 alcohol. That's rare. Now, we've all loved that idea, coming out into this lovely, warm Brazilian world. But the mood around the world is that we want to drink more wine, but drink less alcohol. So if you can actually give us flavour and personality at 12.2, 12.5 alcohol, that's a fantastic achievement that you've got there, a fantastic ability. Is it old world or new world? Well, it's actually old world to drink wine at that kind of strength. That's what the guys used to do. Hey, they drank the wine at 11. They drank the wine at 10. You want to make some wine at 11 alcohol? Try it. But 12 will do at the moment for starters. And I just think if you can do that with grapes like, the Cabernets and Merlot and things, what could you do if you took a slightly different approach? Instead of sticking with this rather French template, these French examples, if you just went wider, looked further afield for what might work. I'd love to come back in a few years' time and people to say, you know what, we've planted this stuff we found in Austria. You know what, we've planted some Czech grape. You know what, we planted this North Italian stuff or this Portuguese stuff. Although I think Portuguese stuff is probably more suitable for the Serra del Soreste and the Campagna, those kind of areas. But I would like to come back and find people saying, we've planted a few more grapes. Now, if nothing else, it'll keep your kids interested, because if you're making the stuff and you've got kids coming in and they want to be in the industry too, you've got to do something to keep them happy. And if you just say, you make more Merlot, you make more Chardonnay, say, Dad, I don't like Merlot and Chardonnay, just none of that nonsense. This is an Italian type family here, do what you're told. Well, maybe the kids will go off and work in Sao Paulo instead, and then you'll be sorry. Give them a chance, plant some different grape varieties. And also, I think the winemaking could have a bit more imagination. I'm not sure that you're catching all the tricks here. The winemaking is very correct, and I think it's much better than it was even a couple of years ago when a lot of the wines had a flatness to them. They're less flat now, but they're correct. They've got sort of this shape. Very correct. They wear a coat and tie. They don't rip off their coat. They don't put on a beach shirt and say, hey, look at us. They don't have this kind of shape. That's the kind of shape you want to see in some of the wines. They're all a bit like that. Now, that's not Brazil. That's not what you guys do. You do the beach shirt. You do the rip the shirt up and, hey, who's in for some fun? Who's going to get to the pool first? All of that that can be in your wine. The best Sauvignon Blancs in the world are the ones that make your mouth just drips with excitement when you drink these fantastically refreshing wines, and you don't think, let me put my suit and tie on and write a tasting note. Well, if you do, you're in the wrong business. What you basically think is, Jesus, I must get this bottle as cold as possible, find a girl I really fancy, and head for the pool. And what is that? Is that just an unserious wine? No, that's the best Sauvignon Blanc in the whole world. Makes you think that. I mean, if people try and tell you that a good wine's got to be serious, I don't agree. And again, as Brazilians, you shouldn't agree either. There's too much serious people. Hey, you want to be serious? You go to Bordeaux for a week. You go to loads of places. You go to Champagne or somewhere for a week. You want serious? You go there. You go to Chianti places and sit around there and see if anyone's having a lot of fun. You're not there. You're in a different country. You're in a wonderful, free culture. You're in a culture which is bursting with confidence at the moment, which is full of optimism, which believes that Brazil is going to lead the way forward in a magnificent way, and places like Europe and the United States are going to be left behind by you. And so part of that should be an exuberance in your wines. Nothing too serious. Take off that tie, throw it away. Take off that suit, put on your beach shirt, head for the pool with a bottle of the best wine you can make.